Itamar's here. There's a lot of people. Are you coming, Itamar?
I'm coming.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the British Library Food Season, to this fantastic event, Food Stories with Itamar Srulovich, and this wonderful panel of food writers, chefs. This is your...
Oh, shuffle. Oh, sorry.
Everyone's going to move.
Are we shuffling?
It's a well-oiled machine. My name is Polly Russell, and I'm curator for the food season. I work with a fantastic team here at the British Library, and across the food season of 6 weeks, around 26 to 30 events exploring all aspects of food and pleasure, food and history, food and politics, taste, everything. There are events going on until the very end of May, so do check them all out. I also want to announce that for the first time this year, we're doing the Food Season Food Awards, which is 4 different categories of awards, which you can find on the website, the Food Season Food Awards website. But crucially, there is a Food Hero Award, which we're asking members of the public and food season audiences to vote on. And these are people who have been nominated by some of our food heroes who have really made a difference in the food system in the UK. So do look, there's up on the screen, there you are, there's a QR code. You can go through to the website and everyone can vote. We'd love to get as many votes as possible. I want to thank Miele, who are our sponsors for the food season, without whom we wouldn't be able to do all of this. And I also want to thank all of the participants and audiences who make the food season so brilliant. Tonight, I really want to thank Itamar Srulovich, who is our host for the evening. Many of you will know Itamar from his restaurants, from the podcast, from his writing. He landed in the UK in 2004, and by 2012, he'd opened one of London's most loved restaurants, Honey & Co., with his wife and friend and partner, Sarit Packer. Itamar has the most wonderful podcasts. He does beautiful writing for the FT, and he also has a skill which I don't imagine everyone here will know. Anyone know what one of his secret skills is? Hands up if you do. No. He's He's Potter. He's an amazing potter amongst everything else. So if the restaurants ever go under, he can become a potter. He's hosted this last year for us, and he did such a brilliant job. We couldn't do anything but invite him back. So over to you, Itamar. Thank you so much.
Can you just continue saying nice things for the next hour and a half?
No, I've run out. There you go.
Wow, what an intro. I mean, what she said, right? Thank you all for coming. This is, it's been such a wonderful night for us because we see this sort of, there's the world of food and the world of words, and they have this magnificent overlap. I think it's not enough for us to just eat it. We need to talk about it. And food is always such an interesting prism to see the world through because it touches all of us and sort of everything we do. It is politics, it is culture, it is family, it is emotions, it is everything that you want to express. Food touches on that. And it's kind of like, our history, our DNA. And I feel that it's always a really good way to get into someone, a really good way to open the door because it's something that we all have in common, we all eat. And through that door that we go in, we don't know what room we're going to go into. There's amazing people here that they chose really such diverse and incredible and very, very moving pieces for us to listen to tonight. So I'm going to introduce each one of these gems, really. They're going to read a piece and we're going to have a short conversation about it. We're going to have questions after. But also, if you have something really pressing, can you just pipe in? We're all friends here. Is that okay? We don't need roving mic.
Well, people
just
have to
holler.
shout very loud because people who are watching online won't be able to hear. So you're going to do that.
They should have made the efforts.
So bad.
Can we just shut the internet. Like, people, leave the house. Come see other people. Come eat with other people. This is what we do here. Enough of my waffling. I want to introduce our first reader for today, who's a writer that I really, really admire. I've been following her writing for a long, long time. She used to write for The Guardian, not anymore, I don't think. But beautiful, beautiful writing, very sort of honest, open. Her name is Ruby Tando. She is originally from Essex. She's currently living in London. She has written for The New Yorker a beautiful piece recently about, what's the website called?
All Recipes.
All Recipes. Read it.
.com.
It's magic. Read it. Vittles, Elle, The Guardian, and more. She has written a book called All Consuming about modern food culture, out in autumn this year. I know that I'm the first one to buy it. Pre-order on Amazon. Big hand for Ruby Tando.
Sorry. Everyone can hear me. So, okay, good. I'm reading a piece that's not by a food writer. It's from a Nora Ephron collection, her first collection of essays, which was from 1970. And this piece is called The Food Establishment. And for context, this is kind of an excerpt. And the bigger essay is about how corrupt and silly food media is in food writers.
Which is all of us, basically.
Yeah. I thought I'd start things on
give
that
us.
note.
On the chin.
Generally speaking, the food establishment, which is not to be confused with the restaurant establishment, the chef establishment, the food industry establishment, the gourmet establishment, or the wine establishment, consists of those people who write about food or restaurants on a regular basis, either in books, magazines, or certain newspapers, and thus have the power to start trends and, in some cases, begin and end careers. Most of them earn additional money through lecture tours, cooking schools, and consultancies for restaurants and industry. A few appear on restaurants, on radio and television. The typical member of the food establishment lives in Greenwich Village, but you could really swap in anywhere in the Evening Standard property section.
I'd say East London, I'd say. Yeah.
This is a treble plan.
Buys his vegetables at Balducci's, Lila's shop, for those who know. His bread at Zito Bakery, that's E5 Bakehouse. His cheese at Bloomingdale's, Neilshard Dairy. He dines at the Coach House, Honey & Co. He's given to telling you, apropos of nothing, how many soufflés he has been known to make in a short period of time. He is driven mad by a refrain he hears several times a week, which is, "I'd love to have you for dinner, but I'd be afraid to cook for you." He insists that there is no such thing as an original recipe. The important thing, he says, is point of view. He lists as one of his favourite cookbooks the original Joy of Cooking by Irma Rombauer, and adds that he wouldn't be caught dead using the revised edition currently on the market. His cookbook library runs to several hundred volumes. He gossips a good deal about his colleagues, about what they're cooking, writing, and eating, and about whom they are talking to. About everything, in fact, except the one thing everyone else in the world gossips about, which is who is sleeping with whom. In any case, he claims that he really does not spend much time with other members of the food establishment, though he does bump into them occasionally at Sunday lunch at James Beard's or one of the publishing parties he is obligated to attend. He takes himself and food very, very seriously. He has been known to debate for hours such subjects as whether nectarines are peaches or plums, and whether the vegetables that Michael Field, Julia Child, and James Beard had one night at La Caravelle and said were canned were, in fact, canned. He roundly condemns anyone who writes more than one cookbook a year. He squarely condemns anyone who writes a cookbook containing untested recipes. Colleagues who break the rules and succeed are hailed almost as if they had happened on a new galaxy. Paula Peck, he will say in hushed tones of awe, broke the rules in puff pastry. If the food establishmentarian makes a breakthrough in cooking methods, no matter how minor and superfluous it may seem, he will celebrate. "I have just made a completely and utterly revolutionary discovery," said Poppy Cannon triumphantly one day. "I have just developed a new way of cooking asparagus."
Thank you for ripping my life. This is especially depressing as I just steamed asparagus for the first time and I just lost my shit. Yeah, that was... I can, own up to being that guy. Anyone else on the stage? I don't know. You? Why not? I want to start with a show of hands in the crowd. Nora Ephron, do you know who she is? Yeah. So she wrote Harry Met Sally. She wrote, she did used to write recipes, didn't she?
She's written everything. She was a reporter and a journalist in New York for many years.
Yeah. So why I would consider her a food writer because she writes about food so much.
Yeah.
In such a fresh way, in such an interesting way.
I think the thing that's fantastic about her food writing, I think most people will know her essays from some of her later collections, which are kind of about her relationship with, cooking a Julia Child recipe or whatever it is, or cooking through divorce in Heartburn. She kind of threads recipes through the text. But I think what I particularly liked about this piece, because it's such an early one, was that she was writing about the food media establishment very much from outside of it. She at that point didn't have any kind of foot in the door, which is how she was able to write that, James Beard hated Craig Claiborne and everyone was giving each other terrible reviews but saying they loved each other and being on hands together and all of this stuff. I can't imagine how it was. In any case, it was such a wonderful snapshot of this point in time where people were talking about food as much as they were eating it. It's that pivot point in the culture. And obviously now we're living in a time where all of us, and I think everyone in this room, regardless of whether you're actually a food writer or just a food writing consumer, you're talking about food constantly. It's so much the culture that it's everywhere.
And this is kind of like the early days of it, or the beginning of it.
It is, yeah, it very much is. The word foodie wouldn't be coined for 15 years after she wrote that.
Okay. Do you see yourself as those guys, as those people?
No, we all think we're incredibly different to that somehow. In some minute way, something sets us apart. Of course I'm like that. But I like to think that, I don't know, I'm different because I wouldn't get my... I best not. In any case...
Yeah. What about you guys? Do you see yourself in this, or do you see any evolution from those days to where we are now?
I think that's interesting. Definitely E5. Definitely Lila's Shop.
Yeah.
Definitely Neil's Yard Dairy.
I was thinking Marjorie, or is this
Yes.
more West London? I don't
Well,
know.
but I think it's also part of the journey of food writing, isn't it? And it's harking back to this sudden explosion on the stage of an interest in food, where previously, because when was this written, Ruby?
It was 68 or 69.
60. I mean, food then was a fetish. I mean, you talked about it in hushed tones.
Yeah.
And everyone went, and they'd rustle their copy of the Cordon Bleu magazine nervously and hide it in the Daily Mail and run home to read it. And they were quite strange days, and there was this tiny firmament. And I suppose that's why it was so catty, because it was a tiny world then. And they had nowhere else to go. Whereas now it's this extraordinary, almost a family tree, really, of folk doing stuff.
Yeah.
But the cattiness, I think, still exists.
No.
But it's interesting that the idea that it was small and catty, and yet still, why is it that now it's bigger? It isn't necessarily more inclusive or thought of in a wider framework, where it isn't necessarily about kind of digging at people. And why? But I think that's probably because it's human nature, isn't it? We like to.
Really, this is the one thing that I thought, because I find that people in food and in this world particularly, really, maybe I've just had a very lucky experience, but a lot of support and a lot of sort of people raising each other up, and people sort of, if you like someone's work, you'd really shout about it. I think maybe because there's no sort of you know, it's quite a friendly world, maybe because there's no money involved.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. That was my experience, but you know, I can accept that maybe it's not a universal one.
No, I think it is.
Yeah.
I think there is a massive part of that,
Yeah.
but I think as human beings we're all
Yeah.
flawed. So there's
We like a bit of gossip.
yeah.
We like a bit. Who doesn't? Who amongst us? Who amongst us? But yeah, for those of you who are not yet awake to the beauty of Nora Ephron's writing, I cannot recommend Heartburn enough. It's such a beautiful book, and it's so, you know, funny and moving. And Ruby's book that's coming out, that's going to be good.
Who am I to say?
Dom, where are you going to take us? Let me introduce Dom. Dom Taylor is a chef with a deep passion for Caribbean cuisine. He was crowned winner of Netflix's 5-star kitchen, Britain's next great chef. This guy. Woo, woo, woo. Listen to this. Went on to secure a sellout residency at the Langham Hotel with his acclaimed concept, The Good Front Room. Says it all. Rooted in classical training, industry experience, and sacred family teachings, Dom's approach to food is both innovative and deeply respectful of tradition. His mission is to modernize and revitalize Caribbean cookery with authenticity, evoking nostalgia while creating a cultural dialogue through food that engages the mind, body, and senses. Dom's influence extends to product development, including Mavi rum, more about that later, I think, and a range of sauces such as signature plantain jam, passionate about mentorship, sustainability, and the future of Caribbean cuisine, continues to push boundaries, championing its rich heritage, ensuring its flavors are celebrated worldwide. This guy. And stylish. Look at him. What did you bring us, man?
Thank you. You made me sound wonderful there.
Man, I can do this all night.
I'm going to bring you with me.
Yeah, it's better than therapy.
So when I was invited to be part of this, the first book that came to mind was Anthony Bourdain, Kitchen Confidential.
Classic.
I probably read this like about 15 years ago, and it was so impactful. And so as soon as I was invited, this came to mind. I then did this run around. I picked other things I was gonna do, and then came back to this and realized this is what I need to write about. And it's so significant to what I'm doing now. And a good friend of mine, Chef King's here, and it'll be good for him to hear this too, because it's just so aligned with kind of where we're at and what we're trying to do. So
Sing, baby.
it's it feels very on point.
Read it to us.
Thank you. And it's also a wonderful book. He's got little scribbled notes in the margins. It's really well written.
Yeah,
Really well written.
It's one of the classics for a reason.
Indeed. So it's called, I'm reading in a chapter called Owner's Syndrome and Other Medical Anomalies. To want to own a restaurant can be strange and terrible affliction. What causes such a destructive urge in so many otherwise sensible people? Why would anyone who has worked hard, saved money, and often been successful in other fields want to pump his hard-earned cash down a hole that statistically at least will almost surely prove dry? Why venture into an industry with enormous fixed expenses, rent, electricity, gas, water, linen, maintenance, insurance, license fees, trash removal, etc., with a notoriously transient and unstable workforce and highly perishable inventory of assets? The chances of ever seeing a return of your investment are about 1 in 5. What insidious, spongiform bacterium so riddles the brain of men and women that they stand there on the tracks watching the lights of the oncoming locomotive, knowing full well it will eventually run them over? After all these years in the business, I still don't know. The easy answer, of course, is ego. The classic example is the retired dentist who always told he threw a great dinner party. You should open a restaurant, his friends tell him. And our dentist believes them. He wants to get in the business, not to make money, not really, but to swan about the dining room, signing dinner checks, like Rick in Casablanca. And he'll have plenty of chances to sign dinner checks. when the deadbeat friends who told him what a success he'd be in the restaurant business keeps coming by looking for freebies. All these original geniuses will be more than happy to clog up the bar, sucking down free drinks, taking credit for bold venture until the place starts running into trouble, at which point they'll dematerialize, shaking their heads at their foolish dentist who just didn't seem up to the job. Maybe the dentist is having a midlife crisis. He figures the boogie act will help pull the kind of chick he could never get when he was yanking molars and scraping plaque. You see, a lot of these ailment, perfectly reasonable, even shrewd businessmen hitting their 50s, suddenly writing checks with their cocks, and they are not entirely misguided in this. They probably will get laid. The restaurant business does have somewhat relaxed more about casual sex, and there are a number of amiably round-heel waitresses, most of them helplessly untalented aspiring actresses for whom sexual congress with older, less attractive guys is entirely unfamiliar. Unsurprisingly, a retired dentist who starts a restaurant for sex or to be told he's marvelous is unprepared for the realities of the business. He's completely blindsided when the place starts making money immediately, undercapitalized, uneducated about the arcane requirements of new grease traps, frequently refrigeration repairs, and unforeseen equipment replacement when business drops or fails to improve. He panics. He starts looking for quick fixes. He thrashes around in an escalating state of agitation, tinkering with concept, menu, various marketing schemes. At the end draws near, the ideas are replaced by more immediately practical ones. Close on Sundays, cut back staff, shut down lunch. Naturally, as the operation becomes schizophrenic, 1 week French, 1 week Italian, as the poor schmuck tries one thing after another like a rat trying to escape a burning building, the already elusive dining public begins to detect the unmistakable odour of uncertainty and fear approaching death. And once distinctive reek begins to waft into the dining room, he may as well lay out petri dishes of anthrax spores as bar snacks, because there is no way the joint is going to bounce back. It's remarkable how long some of these neophytes hang on after the cloud of doom gather around the place, paying for deliveries, cash on delivery, as if magic will happen, as if one good weekend, a good review, something will somehow save them. Like some unseen incubus, the evil cloud of failure can hang over a restaurant long after the operation has gone under, killing anyone who follow. The cumulative vibe of a history of failed restaurants can infect and address year after year, even in the otherwise bustling neighborhood. You can see it when passerbys peer into the front window of next operation. There's a scowl, a look of suspicion, as if they are afraid of contamination. Of course, there are many, many operators who do well in the restaurant business, who know what they're doing. They know from the get-go what they want, what they are capable of doing well, and exactly how much it's going to cost them at the outset. Most important, they have a fixed idea of how long they're willing to lose money before they pull the plug. Like professional gamblers, a slick restaurateur never changes his betting style. He doesn't bother with magic bullets, changing pricing strategies or menu concepts. With steely resolve, a pro in the face of adversity will suck it up and redouble his efforts to make the restaurant what he wanted and planned it to be all along, hoping that the great unwashed will eventually discover it, trust it, learn to love it. These guys know when you hit the panic button and call in consultants, read unemployable chefs, failed restaurateurs who still like to eat for free, or taking austerity measures like combining waiter, bartender functions on slow lunches, or worst of all, closing early, that they may as well close the doors for good. It's just good money after bad. A smart operator will realize things haven't worked out, fold up his tent and move on before he's knocked out of the game for good. One disastrous restaurant venture can drag down an entire string of successful ones. I've seen it many times.
Well, I think the first obvious question, come on, guys. The first obvious question when is your restaurant opening?
Yeah, so I just announced today my first site's opening on the 9th of May. So it's a new site in Ladbroke Grove. I'm collaborating with a company over there, a partnership. It's on my Instagram. The website's up. Chef Dom Taylor, Marvy's Food Shop, named after my dear mother, who's here in the crowd.
Yeah.
So really excited, changing the face of Caribbean food, and gonna really shake up the food scene.
Yeah, but it feels like sometimes a piece of, or you read something at the right time, and that kind of like lights something up for you. That feels very of the moment. How does it make you feel on the eve of your own venture?
When I read this, and it's so funny because, like I said, I read it about 15 years ago, and I hadn't read it again. And then when I was invited to do this came to mind. And in my mind, I would have had the time to have read this chapter about 10 times. That hasn't been the case.
Yeah.
So I read it again this morning, and I was like, oh my God. I felt the same energy I felt 15 years ago. And I remembered how it made me feel, and it made me understand that he understands kind of the restaurant game from a 360-point degree. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He understands how these people can kind of have a bit of money and think, I've got a good idea, I know what I'll do, I can cook food, I'll open a restaurant, it'll be great, loads of my friends will come and I'll make loads of money. And it was just so perfect how he kind of was just kind of going, mate, you're just throwing your money away.
Yeah.
You have no idea that this is a 24-hour job every day, 365 days a year. You sleep it, you dream it, your wife's it, your kids are it. It's everything.
Yeah.
You're in or you're out. There's no one foot in. And I just absolutely adored it. And when I read it again this morning, I was like, oh, I see why I'm here today.
Yeah. This is the thing that you needed to remember.
It just reinforced that, Dom, what you're doing, you know what you're doing, you've got it,
Because I think for all of us, in the restaurant world, we would sort of see or hear of a new restaurant opening, and it'll be like, yeah, that's going to last 6 months, and
you can
what
see
are
it
the
from
one
the off.
you know from the off, who this is just somebody just wants the restaurant for the name or for this, because there is, he describes it very well, but there is something very appealing about the idea of having a restaurant. This is Michel Roussinier once told me that everybody wants to have a restaurant and write a book. And once you've done those two, you know that. But there is something about, there is a draw of having a restaurant. It's something that's very appealing. What is this? Is it just sort of just to get laid? Or something?
I wish you'd tell me that recipe.
I think because we're all so connected to food. So, we love food, we eat food all day, it's what nourishes us. It connects people. There's a lot of love when food's shared.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to go from that to kind of think, okay, I want to do that on a bigger scale. I see other people doing it. This looks easy. I'll do that. But it's a bit like kind of going, do you know what? I can look after people. I'm going to be a doctor. And just turning up in a doctor's coat, and there's a lot that goes into it, and people really don't understand that plate of food that comes out that you see and you take a picture and it's on Instagram, hours and hours and hundreds of pounds go into making that one plate happen.
Yeah. No, I sort of agree, and I do think that there is something of, like not power, but like if you have the restaurant and you're the guy, you're like, and it's really like, every time like when I say something, you say to someone, oh yeah, I have a restaurant, everyone's like, oh yeah, cool. Except for COVID, when everyone was like, oh, sorry. Sorry for your loss. But it is a tricky business. Listen, we're all going to be the friends that are eating for free in Europe.
I'm expecting
That's
you.
us?
Yes.
Do you check your emails? It's there, the invites, yeah? Thank you so much. That was
No,
so
thank you.
interesting. Our next reader is an icon of London restaurants. Can I say? An icon of London. It's you. Germany. It's you.
Silver-tongued devil.
He is
What do you want
a
now?
London icon. He's a renowned, award-winning chef proprietor of Sauce Quo Vadis. Previously manned the stoves of Conrad's Blueprint Cafe and works in distinguished restaurants as Simon Hopkins and Alistair Little. I feel like that, saying that about you is belittling you. You are the guy now. You're the man. He writes for numerous newspapers and periodicals, appears on Channel 4, Could You Eat an Elephant? Several seasons of BBC Great British Menu. Of course, Jeremy's first cookbook, incredibly, only came out in 22. And it was so long awaited that everyone just snapped it up. It was a huge bestseller. And there's another one coming, I'm hoping?
Yes.
I'm dreaming?
Yes.
Yes.
And like the elephant, slow to get there.
Slow to get there, but my God, is it worth it. It's a wonderful
Thank you,
cookbook. If you don't know, Jeremy is not only an icon of London restaurant, he's also, if you haven't seen him cycling past in James Park in the summer, wearing short shorts, this is a London icon. This is how to do it. This is how to do it. Jeremy, what have you brought us?
Well, for a distinguished panel like this, and thank you all for coming. It's very lovely to see you all here. I opted for the first hardback cookbook my parents ever gave me. The only first edition of Elizabeth David I think I'll ever own, because they tend to go for thousands of pounds now. And this little number is mine, of the present. And it was given to me I think it is, rightly, 1984 when it came out. And it's a collection of Elizabeth David's essays in The Spectator. Because she's famous for her books, but she was also an eminent journalist as well, and wrote in all sorts of periodicals, and wrote beautifully on all manner of things. And it occurred to me, and of course I misread the brief, which I had in my mind was to do with garden vegetables and seasonal produce and what have you.
That's the brief, man.
I've thought, yes, I
There
did
you
think so.
read. You got it
So I
right.
thought, God, who's a good food and gardener, kind of thing.
You're Jeremy Lee. You got it right.
Thank you very, very
Yeah, no
much
problem.
indeed. So anyway, from Elizabeth David's An Omelette and a Glass of Wine, published by the distinguished publisher and Elizabeth David's editor, Jill Norman, there is a lovely essay, with a bit of a recipe at the end, on bruscandoli, which is the Italian for hops. And shall we begin?
Shoot.
Very good. One fine morning, early in May 1969, with my sister Diana Gray and her husband, I arrived at the island of Torcello to lunch at Cipriani's lovely little locanda, famous both for its cooking and its charm. I knew the place of old, so did the fourth member of our party. To my sister and brother-in-law, it was new. This was their first time to Venice. For all of us, the trip was a particularly magical one. When we had settled at our table and ordered our food, the jugs of house wine were at our elbow as we sat down. I became aware of a couple at a neighbouring table examining with rapture over their food. They were a handsome and elegant pair. I wondered what was so special about the rice dish which was giving them such pleasure. They in turn noticed my curiosity. With beautiful Italian manners, they passed some across to me, explaining that it was a risotto unique to Venice and unique to this particular season. It was made with a green vegetable called bruscandoli or brusolando, hops in our English. Wild asparagus, so they explained. It was so good that I called the waiter and changed my order. A most delicate and remarkable risotto it was. The manager of the restaurant told me that only during the first 10 days of May can this particular wild asparagus be found in the Venetian countryside. Next day, we all went to another of one of the lagoon islands to lunch at Romano's on Burano. Surprise! There were our friends again. And again the green risotto was on the menu. They had, of course, ordered it. So did we. This time they told me I might find some brusandolo in the Rialto market if I went early enough in the morning. Hurry, though. The season ends any day now. When the charming and splendid pair had left, I asked the proprietor of the tavern who they were. Ah, you mean the Asota Fraschini. The inheritors of the name of that wonderful and glamorous automobile of the 20s and 30s, no less. No wonder they carried about them the aura of romance, and he especially of the authentic Italian Magnifico. So, to me, the name of Asota Fraschini is now indissolubly linked with the memory of those extraordinary and subtle risotti of the Venetian lagoons. We went again to Torcello to eat bruscandoli. I went to the Rialto market, found an old woman selling a few bunch of it. It's last of the year, she said. took it back to my hotel, stuck it in a glass so that I could make a drawing of it. When I came back in the evening, the zealous chambermaid had thrown it away. No, next morning, there was no old lady selling bruscandoli in the market. For once, it was true. That warning, tomorrow it will be finished. I searched the cookery books and the dictionaries for more details of the wild asparagus. I could find no descriptions, no references. Months later, in a little book about Venetian specialities, I discovered the following sentence, which I'm not even going to try to read, but I will try, if you like me. Le menestra qui usato sono quelli di riso, con bruscandoli, lupolo, cumo, finocchio, salvatrico. So bruscandoli is Venetian for lupoli, and lupoli, or cibo de lupolo, are wild hop shoots. It is, of course, well known that hop shoots have a flavour much akin to that of asparagus, and the confusion is a common one. All the same, it was curious that neither the local Venetians to whom I talked, nor the knowledgeable Isotta Fraschini couple should have known that hop shoots, rather than asparagus, were used in those famous risotto. Maybe they did, but didn't know the alternative word. In the Milan region, they have yet another name, raucous. And though that wild asparagus was a near enough approximation, the truth is that when I brought the bruscandolo in the market, it didn't look much like any kind of asparagus, so I was suspicious. But it didn't look like hops either, and wild hop shoots I'd never before seen. Research has yielded various other regional Italian dishes made with bruscandoli or lupoli. In her little book, La Cucina Romana, dealing with the old specialities of Roman cooking, Ada Bone gives a recipe for zuppa di lupoli, and I've heard of a frittata, or flat omelette, with hop shoots in Tuscany, and also in the more northerly region of Brianza. In Belgium, hop shoots are equally a speciality. They are called jet de houblon. Moving on to the virtues of hops. As we know, this is where it gets really funny. As we know, hops were introduced into England only during the reign of Henry VIII. We all knew that, didn't we, of course? 50 years later, by the latter part of his daughter Elizabeth's life, the shoots of the cultivated plant were evidently accepted as a delicacy resembling asparagus. Dr. Muffet, author of Health's Improvement, written during the 1590s but published only in 1635, 51 years after the author's death, even calls them luparili asparigi. Hop shoots, he says, are of the same nature with asparagus, nourishing not a little, being prepared in a little sort, though rather cleansing and scouring of their own nature. In other words, hop shoots were yet another of the precious, blood-purifying herbs of spring, so welcoming and so necessary in the days when the winter diet was predominantly one of salt meat, dried pulses, and bread. An Italian doctor, Baldassare Pisanelli of Bologna, went a great deal further than his contemporary Dr. Muffet in praise of hops and their health-giving properties. Pisanelli's Trattoria della Natura del Cibi e del Bere, or Treatise on the Nature of Foods and Beverages, was first published in Rome in 1583. It was evidently a popular and influential book, for it was continuously in print for the next 200 years. Not bad going. Hops, declared Dr. Pisanelli, are the best of all edible herbs. They refresh the blood and cleanse it. They are also efficacious in cleansing the stomach organs, in particular the liver, and the wonder is that with so many virtues they are so little used. For in truth, the benefits they confer are most marvellous and immediate. They are much esteemed in Germany and other northern countries. The shoots are eaten cooked in salad. They loosen the bowels and and move obstructions. The decoction of flowers and leaves clear bad smells and cures the itch. The syrup is miraculous in choleric fevers and the plague. We all need hops in our lives, I think.
I mean, first of all, Jeremy, I just want to listen to you read in Italian forever. I think I speak for all of us. Yeah, that was so beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Have you ever tried? How do you pronounce it?
Bruscandoli.
Bruscandoli.
I did when the eminent vegetable importer Natura, was kicking off, and all sorts of wonders were brought from Italy. And the thing I liked about this story was when we all first fell in love with Italian cooking, which is going back to the 1980s, really, when we were still emerging with the idea that it was just tomatoes and pasta, and that was about it, swimming in olive oil. With the rise of restaurants and the blooming of this enormous business out of seemingly nowhere previously, the great knock-on effect was that the suppliers and producers started appearing like wildfire, and suddenly we had access to produce we'd never had before and didn't even know what they were. And things like hops were unthinkable. We'd never used a green, peas for sure. Hops, we'd never heard of a hop. And so they used to bring hops over from Italy, and indeed we did have them. But the problem which is why I like this story. The problem was that they had been cut too young, gathered, probably farmed, chilled, kept in a chilled room, and by the time they would get to the shops, would really have lost their lustre. And so there's one of these lovely things with particularly spring produce, for example, where it loses its lustre very quickly after being picked, and you just want to snip and pop it in the pot. And so I was rather charmed by this story of something, you know, because going back to Anthony Bourdain as well, there's an incredible film of one of his visits to the Venetian Islands, where the risotto was never stirred, but flipped.
Yeah.
And it went up in this extraordinary thing when they came straight back down directly into the pot, not one grain spilled. Very impressive filming. But that's why I like this one. I thought it had great charm, and I thought it was a whisper of an old world. And in the straitened times we find ourselves, because produce like that, even if you could get it over a bit, it would be so ludicrously expensive, nobody could afford it.
You're not going to make risotto.
I know, so thank God for this David, you can read about it.
Yeah.
And
What does it taste like? What is it?
Nothing.
I'm aching. Nothing, right?
No,
Thank you
it's
so much.
completely lost its flavour. No, but that wild asparagus, it
Yeah.
has an ephemeral flavour. It's off the moment and
Grassy.
hasn't got. Yes, sadly, you know, it doesn't have that incredible, ineffable quality that real true asparagus has.
Has anyone tried this
No.
proscandoli thing? Is it just me aching to try it, or yeah? It's
We've
the
all
first-
got to go to Venice.
Yeah, well, I think it's the first 10 days of May that we need to
Just
put our
saying.
skates on. We need to put our skates on.
Yes, because it won't be there tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah, like she said, or the maid is going to throw them away. Let's talk a little bit about the writer, about Elizabeth David. First of all, Omelette and a Glass of Wine, what a perfect name.
Oh, well, all her titles were great.
Yeah.
I think why she still resonates and has a very important place in the food writing firmament and food generally is that she was so formative in introducing the idea of food and cooking and lifting the lid off the kitchen being a tyranny for women who had two kids climbing all over them and doing it was all this, you know, this the necessity of life. And she wanted to introduce some charm to it. And what's interesting, you know, you have to overlook her snippy comments because she's coming at a time when there really was terrible food around.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, I was born a decade later after these writings were done. And I think she wrote so lyrically about it. She introduced the idea of, this idea that you could be transported somewhere and conjure this idea. Out of really, when she first started, it was rather a gloomy post-World War time of rationing. Things were very strange. The world was in turmoil. And there was this tiny little glimmer of charm that I think was very winning and very engaging. And it certainly hit my mother, you know, like a sledgehammer, who was living in this very remote little town on the east coast of Scotland in Dundee, where really, I mean, it was turnips and mutton, if you were lucky.
No proscandoli there.
There was no more proscandoli. And Mum took to like a duck to water and cooked brilliantly from it. And our childhood was filled with, even though we didn't have a clue, we just stuffed our faces with whatever was put in front of us and we loved it. But it was buried very deep in our DNA and it resonated right the way through. And when restaurants started emerging and the green baize door was put down and it was no longer, you know, the plastic flower and the little apricot polyester tablecloth, you know, and Terence Conran was huge in this one and introduced, you know, and the chefs like Simon Hopkinson and Alistair Little, who I did luck out cooking with, well, you know, open for, you know, they had Elizabeth David in their kitchens. And so it was a sort of a natural progression of a sort of coming home, really, to where, oh God, this is what I was looking for in restaurants. And so she stayed a great chum ever since, and she's never far from one side.
That's charming. That's beautiful. Big hands, everyone. Our next writer, is Marie Mitchell, who I very much enjoyed cooking with when we did the supper club together. Best food. She is a writer, chef, and co-founder of Island Social Club, a space that was aimed at filling a void left by the erosion of London's once thriving Caribbean social scene. Conscious of driving British Caribbean cuisine and culture forward, she develops her dishes focusing on history, geography, contemporary ingredients found at locale and home in London, and also deliciousness, I can say, as someone who's tried all her food. Marie has written for the Observer Food Monthly, Guardian Feast, Bar Market, Waitrose Food, Resi London. She's spoken live at the Do Lectures, featured on Sunday Brunch, Broadcasting House, Jamie Oliver accolades, her first cookbook, is so good. Is so good. Everything you cook for it is mouth-wateringly delicious. Collected recipe from Cabria and Diaspora is published 2024 by Particular Books. I know who they are. Will be published in 25 by Norton. I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's in America.
Yeah, America. What more can we say?
Great summary.
What did you bring us, Madonna?
So this book actually isn't out yet, but I was really lucky to get a proof. It's the Jackfruit Chronicles by, I really don't want to butcher your name, so I'm sorry if I do, but it's Shahnaz Arsam, and we have a friend in common, so just for many years have kind of been in each other's orbit, so I felt very privileged that she decided to send me a copy early. And I just find her writing, even just from being Facebook friends, we don't really use it that much anymore, but whenever I pop on occasionally to check things, I've always loved just like the little comments that she writes. She just is so evocative and transportive with her words. And I just think the introduction to this book is beautiful, and I want to shout about it, and everyone should pre-order it.
Yeah. And it's a sneak preview just for us.
Yeah.
We're the first one. Take that, internet people.
They get to see it too. Sorry.
Sorry, internet. Okay, do it. Sing it.
Lessons in Love and Jackfruit. Amu and Abu have come to visit. I've just given birth to my baby daughter, thousands of miles away from the small town in northern England where I was born and raised and where my parents reside to this day. They have made the 24-hour journey to Zimbabwe, where I currently live with my husband and our 2-year-old and our 2 young children. My parents have become accustomed to visiting us in far-flung places. Since getting married, Avi and I have spent the entirety of our 30s so far living in Eastern and Southern Africa. Our children have lived almost their whole lives on this continent, the third continent that has been called home in as many generations of my family. The tides of migration have taken our bloodline from Asia to Europe and now most recently to Africa. My grandparents were all born in Bengal, my mother and I in Britain, and now the newest addition to our family will call Zimbabwe her birthplace. Amu and Abu have come to spend time with their grandchildren and to take care of Avi and me as we adjust to life with a small baby again. In the 3 weeks that they are here, my mother cooks food from my childhood, washes up and gives advice on how I can cook my rice so that it is fluffier. I'm short of a cup of water, she says. I try her suggestion of adding 1 extra. She's right, and I marvel all over again at how often Amu really does know best. My father does all the food shopping in farmers' markets, supermarkets, and even from street vendors. In a way only known to my parents, who have a talent for doing this wherever they are in the world, they have discovered a food seller in the suburbs of Harar who deals in jackfruit, or kathal as is known in Bangla, pronounced katal, with a hard emphasis on the T sound. It is fair to say that they are beside themselves with excitement. Jackfruit is the national fruit of Bangladesh. Having only gained independence in 1971, Bangladesh has an official national everything, perhaps to help cement its identity as a very new country. The Royal Bengal tiger is, of course, the national animal. The national flower is the sapler, or water lily, which appears on many emblems. There is the national fish, Ilish hilsa, a national tree, mango, a national bird, doel, oriental maple magpie robin, and so on. But of all its national symbols, the jackfruit is the most unique and the most loved. Getting hold of jackfruit is a full-time hobby of most diaspora Bangladeshis. It is a fruit that grows only in tropical climates and it is difficult to transport, so scarcity adds to its appeal. Amu and Abu are delighted by the prospect of buying this fruit that reminds them of home, or one of their homes, or a place that they used to think of as home. They meet the vendor at his permanent spot outside Lucky Elephant Chinese restaurant and casino. Unconfirmed rumours of a bordello in the complex also abound, a detail I keep from my parents. The jackfruit is closely examined, tapped and sniffed. It passes the inspection. Abu learns that the jackfruit comes all the way from Zanzibar, a discovery that makes sense as the fruit is common to all coastal regions of the Indian Ocean. He takes the vendor's name and number and passes it to my husband, ensuring that we now have a direct source to as much jackfruit as we could wish for. Amu and Abu proudly return home with this gigantic fruit, weighing anywhere between 5 and 30 kilograms and clad in a spiky, leathery skin. Jackfruit is not a low-effort food. Preparing it is a literal labour of love. It is also particularly messy. The milky sap is stubborn and hard to wash off, so plastic sheets are laid down to protect the table on which we will carve this enormous fruit. Only cheap, sturdy knives are used, and the blades are well oiled to protect against stickiness. Customarily, a person will oil their beard or moustache before eating the fruit to make it easier to wash off the syrupy juice that would inevitably cling to the face. My parents make it an event, a celebration. My son is called over to watch the proceedings. I'm instructed to take photographs from every angle. Containers are prepared, some old ice cream tubs and takeaway containers, nothing precious, so we can share the bounty with friends and neighbours. Eagerly, we watch as the fleshy yellow segments are peeled away, ready to eat immediately. The fat seeds and sides are removed to be dried and cooked later. It is the best jackfruit I have ever had. I enjoy it so much that I eat it standing in front of the fridge, right out of the plastic storage boxes. There is something restorative about it. It feels like medicine, nourishing and healing my postpartum body and soul with every mouthful. I make the rookie mistake of telling Amu that I love the cathal, although I am not aware of the full consequences of my actions until later that week, when she and Abu delightedly walk into the house carrying not one, not two, but 3 entire jackfruit. Instead of gratitude, my poor parents are met with a meltdown. Where am I meant to store these 3 giant fruits? When will we have time to prepare them, and who will eat them? I'm reminded of Amu's fury when Abu would bring home extra canisters of cooking oil that were on sale, or multiple crates of light cheese in season, and she would complain about not having anywhere to store it all. Even as a child, I knew that this was not the right response to what was a gesture of love. I see Amu and Abu looking crestfallen, and I feel ashamed. Later that evening, while cuddling my baby girl, I think more about how we express our affection. I grew up feeling a little envious of my English friends whose families freely and regularly told each other, I love you. Instead, Bangladeshi families like ours choose to demonstrate it, and the way we know best is through food. I think about the generations who lived before us, who loved one another the same way we do, and who showed it in the same way, through peeling and cutting fruit for their children, or selecting the choicest fish at the market to welcome a returning relative, or ensuring that a guest's preferred pan is available when they come to visit. Across 3 different continents and multiple generations, food is the love language that we share. It is the thread that binds us to our histories and our futures, a testament to where we come from and the hope of where we are going. I dedicate this book to Amu and Abu, who taught me so much, especially lessons in love and jackfruit.
Buy it.
I love this so much. I love this so much, and it sort of chimes a little bit with what you were reading, Jeremy. The sort of the draw that there is to something that grows somewhere else. That that flavor that is so important, actually.
Yeah.
And I loved hearing it, and
It's like beautiful. It's like her writing is. It's just so relatable, and it's even if it's talking about something that maybe we don't understand or have experienced directly, you can understand it. I think for me, the talk about the containers, I remember so clearly. We would always have these 2-litre ice cream Walls containers, and forever, like when we'd go to my nan's, it would be stuffed with food that you'd take home, and there would always be a few of them in the cupboard. And it's just such a visual memory that takes me back to a moment that then, you're able to share this with someone who you haven't had this same experience with, that I think is really beautiful. Yeah. And I like the way in which she's talking about this story that's kind of continues to span continents and this journey that keeps moving and shuffling and changing, but just that love keeps being tethered and kind of following them around.
I love that they found the hookup to buy the fruit outside the Chinese restaurant and casino/brothel. I just remember when we first came here, me and my wife, we discovered where you can get the cucumbers. Because we get very, very small, very sweet, crunchy cucumbers. And suddenly we saw them in Edgware Road. And then we got so excited about it. And the people we were working with cucumbers? Just no, but you have to, it's just so deep, that taste of home, or that, especially when it's fruit or vegetable. I love that bit.
I'm about an avocado pear when I'm in the Caribbean. You can get them here, but it's just you literally just open it, slice, put it on a bit of hardo bread or like cassava bread and just like it needs nothing else. And it's just like the most delicious thing. And it is nice to have it here, but it's just there's that experience of being in the warmth and connected smells, sights, everything.
Yeah.
It's just like a moment where you're like, oh.
There is the talk about sort of food miles and eating local and sort of not importing food, but also it is so deeply important.
I don't think we'd have much choice if we didn't.
No, I'm saying, yeah, of course we will. You will, have a lot of turnips, but it's so and very delicious they will be. We will cook them like we do, but there is something so exciting and so deeply important about having this produce and having, I don't know.
I think a similar feeling is genuinely eating with the seasons, even though with things being transported. Like I have been thinking about mango season for so long now, and it's practically here, and the excitement that I feel is just.
Yeah, Drummond Street, just behind the British Library, where we are for your Alfonso mangoes. Yeah, £5 a box. Yeah.
Some good intel.
Yeah, we're staying a little coastal with Cynthia Shanmugh. Big hand to Marie Mitchell.
Oh.
Come on, baby. We're staying sort of in the vicinity of Bangladesh with Cynthia Shanmughalingam. I practiced all night. She is a British Sri Lankan cook whose debut cookbook and culinary memoir, Rambutan, Recipes from Sri Lanka, won the Fortnum & Mason Best Debut Cookery Book in 2023, was named the Best Cookbook of the Year by New York Times, LA Times, Chrissy Teigen. Is she a publication? I thought she was a person. And Bon Appetit. She is the chef proprietor of the bar market restaurant Rambutan, which, I mean, I don't want you guys to go there because already we can't get in. If you haven't been, just go somewhere else. Leave it to us. It's an amazing restaurant. The food is ethereal. It's so good. But you can't get in, which is good. I'm happy. Shouldn't. You can't get in. I can. The restaurant Rambutan, which opened in March 2023, was hailed as dazzling by the Financial Times. At its heart, the style of cooking tells the story of an immigrant Sri Lankan family cooking their way of a profound sense of loss about the place their parents called home. Wow. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Sorry about the ramble, but I'm...
That was lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, I love your restaurant and your book.
Thank you.
What are you reading for us?
I'm reading from Rambutan.
Yes.
And this is maybe my favourite thing that I've written. And it's very similar, I feel like, to Marie's piece.
We're drawn
on
to
the
similar
subject.
things.
Yeah, exactly. On the subject of fruit. So yeah. In a Tamil dictionary, next to the reductive English idea that is uncle, you have a choice of at least 7 Tamil words, and there are many, many more in common use. There's specificity in the words for family. Was it your dad's little brother or your mum's middle one? Did his mum find him cute, Kutti Mama, or one of my favourites, Baby Mama? Did he have major flaws, Katte Mama, he's a short ass, or worse, Kuttu Mama, which means he stabbed someone? Was he a stone-cold sweetheart, Arse Mama? Did he live far away, Trinko Mama? Did he have any distinguishing features, a fancy Toyota, Car Mama, or favourite food, Puttu Mama? Every person, including me, including if you'd never met them before, immediately has many names and many avatars. And each name asks and answers, who is this guy to you? How are you tied together? The love and rancour and guilt of family all woven tightly into the very words. My favourite uncle was my dad's little brother, who we called Attapa, from my brother's toddler list for Arsi Appa, or sweet guy, younger, on your dad's side. He was like a skinny, funny version of our dad, happy to lie to his big brother to protect us. Oh yeah, they're asleep already. Or, no, she didn't eat any sweets, she must have gotten food poisoning, as I puked up peanut alua noisily in the bathroom. He drove us in his ragged old Jeep up and down the brilliant green hill country where he was stationed as an engineer, explaining hydroelectricity and kidding around. His eyes fired up when discussing all the injustice of the tea plantations, how to be careful of leeches, how the Kotmale Dam he was helping to build held back water, how the force of the falls could become electricity. One day, Itamar put a small, hairy, red and yellow fruit into my hand from a brown paper bag and told me to crack it open. A rambutan. I dug my nails into the crisp, spiky shell and prized out a translucent orb, a meaty scented jelly, all sugar and perfume and a faint sourness at the same time. I had another and another. We looked at each other with excitement. The next bag over had mangosteens, dark indigo powdery balls which stained your fingers as you scooped out juicy white wet cloves of intense deliciousness that tasted of ripe peaches, lychees and roses. Then a huge spiky green monster of a fruit cut down from Itamar's tree, which he peeled back to reveal masses of sticky, sweet, orange fibrous segments with almost a bubblegum flavour. So this was jackfruit. I should have guessed from the glint in their eyes when Itamar and Dad handed me my first little Nelly gooseberry, saying it's very sweet, but I had to spit out its mouth-suckingly sour remains out as they collapsed into uncontrollable laughter. Lacan fruits, like family, come in abundance. They come thick in sheets, like, oh my God, what do we do with them all? A banana tree in the back garden would suddenly have 46 bananas that were all going to go off in 2 days, and so we ate together. There seemed to be so much family then in so many places I didn't know, Dahiwala, Hambantota, Kotmale, Nellieri, Batikalo, Madara, that I couldn't remember who was who or what was where. Back then, I didn't know that the squad would die, that the swagger would leave us. At the end of those summers, when it was time to go back to England, Itamar would load us up with a gut-destroying freight of homemade snacks, of fruits that would rarely survive the journey. He would drive us to the airport, grinning a skinny, big grin, and waving and running alongside as we moved through all the departure checks. We tried to hold back our tears, fighting them until we burst, electric tears streaming down our faces. Every time we looked back, he was still there, waving to us through all the brown-tinted perspex, lifting our baby cousin onto his shoulders, waving all the way until we were gone from Sri Lanka, gone from security, gone forever until the next time. And then one year, he was just gone forever. First Canada, and then cancer. And suddenly it wasn't that person that was gone, but that Sri Lanka that was gone, as if the homeland that existed in our mind, bound to us at birth, had become a heavy moon in our orbit, stretching out its ties to us like tightly strung tendons. And one by one, each of those bonds snapped as our family fled Sri Lanka's different dangers, as the family who stayed grew old and died. We hadn't known it when he was alive, but Itamar was the strongest heartstring we had to Sri Lanka. When he was gone, we felt a hard whiplash in our necks and in our spines. For me, he died twice, first when I heard he was gone, and then again when I arrived to Sri Lanka, to an airport where he wasn't smiling and waiting in arrivals, to an empty Colombo flat without his singing in it. What happens to a homeland when no one is left to take you to the airport, when there's no one left to cry real tears when it's time to fly home? Are you even Sri Lankan anymore if there are no old friends or family left to tease you about your silly new hairdo? Is the country anything more to you than familiar fruits and smells, or the building Mum said was the school she went to, where she was a ghost, where we were a ghost children?
Wow. Yeah, that was so moving. That was so moving. Thank you for that. And I think, like you said, I don't know what to say to this, but I think that, food can so often, it's kind of like a placeholder for what isn't there anymore or what was, but, just kind of like pulls at your heartstring. So beautiful. So beautiful. Yeah. I was just telling Cynthia earlier that I was in Sri Lanka 2 months ago, and I did come back with a suitcase of pineapples. There's a few recipients here, and it felt very much like a place healing, like a place coming together after quite a hard time. Does it feel like that to you when you go back?
Yeah, I mean, Sri Lanka had a long civil war, and most of my family left because of that, and it ended in 2009. And I feel like it's having a
Which is
kind
not
of...
that long ago.
Not that long ago, no. And it ended in a very violent and sad way, and you know, lots of people died, and there's still a process, I think, ongoing there, and I guess when I was writing this piece, I was thinking about you can smuggle back a pineapple in your suitcase. You can, but it's never quite the same. I actually don't even think the flavour is quite the same. No. I don't know why, but it's never quite. So, and kind of that some things are lost, and you can only really recapture them when you're back.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I think actually you've said it so perfectly and completely that I have nothing more to say. Should we take a moment to compose ourselves after this? Big hand, please, come on. Our next reader is someone that you may not have heard of, and you should have. She's amazing. Rosamund Grant. Hello, Rosamund. Hi. How are you?
Hi.
Good. She is a published cookery writer and consultant, Caribbean food expert, former restaurant owner of Bambaya in Crouch End. Anyone else? Anyone bit? Yeah, nice one. Rosamund has authored several books on Caribbean and African cooking, Caribbean African cookery, Taste of Africa, Taste of the Caribbean, and was one of the hot chefs on the BBC TV series. In 2001, Rosamund's oral history was recorded as part of the British Library National Life Stories collection, so you can listen to it here. Fascinating stuff. During lockdown, confused. Part of the British Library National Life Story collection, food from source to Salespoint. Rosamund has been volunteering in a local community, producing weekly hot meals for charities, food banks, and street kitchens. This happened during lockdown. Amazing lady. Hello. Yeah, come on. National treasure, right there.
Sorry.
Tell us a little bit about...
to wind me up over there.
Good.
Looking at me and saying...
Yeah, you brought your own heckler. It's always good. I brought several. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to read. And give us a little bit of context, because it's fascinating.
I sort of tossed between reading something from a cookery book, reading something from my cookery books, and ended up thinking, no, I'm going to do something different. So I chose... My brother was Bernie Grant, the MP for Tottenham. He died 25 years ago, April this month. And so we were celebrating his passing. And I thought, as a tribute to his passion for food, I wanted to talk about that. So I had interviewed him when I wrote for a national magazine many years ago, and I took a snippet of that interview to read, because it's a side of him that I suppose people don't know about, because as a Labour MP at that time, you know, they just focused on politics. Or the public focused on politics, but the other side of him was very much a family person who loved food. So I thought I'd read something that I wrote in the interview. So, Bernie loved food from the Caribbean islands, but was especially keen on the cuisine of his youth. Dishes from Guyana with its multicultural influences. Most of those who knew Bernie well were aware of how to please him. They cooked his favorite dishes and brought him gifts of food. Even the local shopkeepers in his constituency often offered him something that he liked as he passed their doors or stopped to speak to them. The local fishmonger from Mauritius refused to take money for his snapper, the greengrocer for an avocado. The butcher always reserved a traditional Caribbean ham for him at Christmas. Bernie, as a child, developed a serious allergy to prawns, but could never eat the delicious prawn delicacies prepared in our household. One such being spicy fried okras with garlic and lots of juicy prawns. However, after 40 years, Bernie accidentally discovered that the allergy had disappeared. Just like that. He then attempted to make up for lost time by having prawns with everything. So I interviewed Bernie for this magazine, and this is an extract from the interview. Bernie, if I were creating a dish for you, what would you like it to be? I'll try and take off a voice that's male. I'd like prawns flavored with garlic, fresh coriander, and fresh Caribbean broadleaf thyme. I love the smell. It reminds me of Guyana. I don't like oil much or sauce, and it must be peppery, but most importantly, there must be plenty of it. Oh. You cook and eat a lot of Guyanese dishes, don't you, Bernie? Yes, I do. I like split pea soup, pepper pot. Pepper pot is an Amerindian dish. It comes out, from Amerindian culture in Guyana. Black pudding. But I always make a good curry goat in true Jamaican style. The only food I hate is sweet potatoes and boiled dumplings. Give me rice any day, and in fact, every day, which you probably did. But when it comes to cooking for guests, I will burn or mess up even the most familiar things that I cook, like rice. I get very nervous, he said. So you have to take your time, I said. Did you say time or thyme? Yes, a good whiff usually works wonders. Bernie, don't be silly, I said. Take me seriously. So, if you had a dinner party for some celebrities, who would you like to invite and why? Okay, he said pompously. Well now, this dinner to me would be a political event. We would talk serious politics, serious matters. I looked amused and expectant, wondering who would be allowed to grace his table. He said, I would have to invite Che Guevara, because he's my hero. He's dead now, so he'd have to come back. I suspect he would be hungry, because he was in the jungle fighting guerrilla warfare, and would need a square meal. I would have my friend Rosie Douglas. He was the leader of the Dominican Labour Party. I would like to invite Patrice Lumumba, another hero of mine. He liked Fidel Castro. He's okay, he said. He would need the best Havana cigars. I would also invite Zainab Badawi. She knows a lot about Africa and politics. And Kirsty Wall. She's a very effective television presenter. I think that they would all like fish, seasoned, fried, and dry. They would all have to like prawns, because I like them. With okra, of course. I would like them to try my curry goat, a few side vegetables, like spicy fried aubergines, lots of rice, whole grain brown, by the way. They would have soup. I know a good tinned spinach soup. The look of horror on my face made him change to fresh spinach soup. For dessert, I would have a tropical fresh fruit salad with plenty of mangoes, my best fruit. Of course, lots of homemade ginger beer. Bernie, how would you add humour to the meal and perhaps let them know that you were Bernie Grant, MP for Tottenham, cooked it? Well, of course, he laughed. I would stamp the plates with MP, and I would pipe the letters MP as a fresh cream garnish on the soup. I would have red wine, perhaps Chateauneuf de Pop. But Bernie, white wine would be better with seafood, I said. So what? I want red. So to your travels. Being a well-traveled man, Bernie, I said. Being a well-traveled man, particularly to Africa, do you have any food stories? Oh, thank you, he said patronizingly. You do realize I am a well-traveled man, Rosamund. Well, I said, I was recently invited to a specially prepared feast, he said, prepared by Moroccan chefs. They said we could request anything, and there were 26 delegates, one of whom spoke Arabic. Well, at least he claimed to speak Arabic. He ordered our special requests, and a little while later, seeing that he looked uncomfortable, I prompted, this is Bernie speaking, "Are you all right, Ramsay?" He said, "Well, I don't know now, really. My Arabic isn't all that good. I'm not sure whether I ordered sheep for 26 or 26 sheep." Whereupon we both dissolved into laughter and thus ended the interview.
I would kill to be at that dinner party. I would kill everything, the guests, the food, everything. I'm sure that, I'm not alone. What I love about this is his personality comes out so strong. Your personality comes out so strong, and the relationship between the two of you is so alive. He loved giving you grief.
Yes.
Yeah, it feels.
He did. Yeah, he was the sort of older, bossy brother ever since I was a child. And, and as an MP, he became even more bossy.
Even more bossy.
But very lovely, lovely person.
Yeah, but you can very much get a sense of the person, his sense of humor, his appetite, his fun, his taking no bullshit. He doesn't care if white wine with fish, he drinks what he drinks.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just his own person, yeah.
Yeah, but also very sort of thoughtful and very caring.
Yes.
You don't want Fidel Castro not to have his cigars, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
No, it was a very, very beautiful piece. Tell us a little bit more about him for those who don't know, like me.
Sorry?
Tell us a little bit more about him, about his background, his career.
Yeah, well, he was the MP for Tottenham, and I think it was interesting at that time when he held his surgeries in Tottenham. People came from far and wide, not just people in Tottenham, from Hackney, from anywhere. Anyone who was seeking asylum or wanting to get their council house decorated or painted or, being neglected for something or other, people would come to him and he would always, work with that person. So when he died, it was an enormous funeral at Alexandra Palace, in fact. Mm-hmm. And, it was very moving, and it was the whole of Haringey seemed to be out.
So it sounds like an
tribute
amazing
to
person.
him, yeah.
You would cook for him?
Did I cook for him?
You would cook for him? No.
I cooked for him quite a lot, and I cooked for other MPs when he invited them home to his house.
Really? Did he give you grief when you were cooking to him as well?
Always gave me grief, yes. He always said, that hadn't got enough pepper. He always thought he knew more than I did, But he was also very encouraging and interested in what I was doing. Yeah. Once we did an interview for the Sunday Times magazine, and it was called Relative Values.
Yeah.
And, it would be two relatives talking. And it was interesting because I talked about him, this lovely brother I had, and we grew up in Guyana, in the countryside when we lived in the country, running through the white sandy hills, picking pineapples. When we shouldn't have been doing, I was following him as a younger sister, and he was kind of quite naughty and always getting into trouble. And, and we would sort of... So I was talking about all that kind of stuff. And then when it was his turn to talk about me, he was saying that he was a little bit kind of tongue-in-cheek, She says she wanted to be this, and she wants to be a restaurateur, But he was also saying things like, oh, Rosamund loves family. She's always gathering family from all over the place, And so we had this kind of relationship, like you said, big brother, little sister, but huge respect at the same time, and a great love of family and friends and food.
I think your piece captures this so beautifully.
Thank you.
Felt like we were at that table with you guys.
Yeah.
20 years, you say, to...
Sorry?
20 years since he died?
25 this month, yes.
25.
And so we celebrated...
I'd suggest you need to recreate that meal. If you can get Che Guevara, if not, that's okay. Christy Walk is available, she'll come. And all of us, we would love to join.
It's an interesting thing, who would you have to dinner if you wanted to cook, your hero?
You.
Celebrity.
You're my new hero. Thank you so much. Big hand, please. Okay. Now we're going left now. We're going a little bit left. Angela Huey is the author of Takeaway, A Childhood Behind the Counter. Wonderful book. I cannot recommend it enough. I will say that I was reading it and I just putting it down and I just wanted to order a Chinese takeaway. This is horrible to say.
No.
But I love this book so much, as you know. She's a journalist, editor, specialized in food, drink, lifestyle, travel, race and identity. That's a mix. She was the former food and drink editor of Time Out London and the lifestyle reporter of HuffPost. Her work has been widely published in 50 Best, the BBC, Guardian, Financial Times, The Independent, News, Lonely Planet, Metro, Michelin Guide, National Geographic, all the publications except Christy Teigen. But you need to have something to aim for.
That is my 25 bucket.
Yeah. And she's brought... Hi, Angela.
Hi, thanks for the lovely introduction.
Well, you know, I mean every word. You know how much I loved your book.
Thank you. It really means a lot.
And she's brought something a little bit different for us.
Yeah, I'm more nervous now after reading, like, listening to everyone else's. So was a manga.
Yeah.
I've got a clicker and everything. I don't know how... I was figuring out, I was like, how am I going to make it work? Like, how am I going to read the pictures?
Don't tell them.
And stuff?
I figured it out.
I'll figure it out, and I'll figure it. But yeah, when British Library asked me, like, my favourite piece of food writing, like everyone else, I was, like, really thinking about it. I was like, what do I have? Like, I could have read Anthony Bourdain, like, you know, a life-changingly kind of foundational book, or, like, M.K. Fisher's books, or... even like Nora Ephron's, like Heartburn was just like so, you know, guttural experience. But I kept thinking, like, what was the thing for me that I just kept going back to? And I loved manga and I loved anime, and it kind of, you know, I kind of grew up with it. It was just kind of almost like a secret, because I think a lot of people don't look at it as a kind of proper art form. And, you know, and I realized that all of these kind of cartoon shows and animes and mangas, they kind of taught me so many amazing life lessons. Like, I still read, you know, Sailor Moon, or like One Piece, or like GTO and Naruto. And I think a lot of people see it as this nerdy kind of culture. They don't really understand it, but there's so much great storytelling within it. And yeah, so this book that I've chosen, I'm going to probably butcher every pronunciation because it's Japanese, but this book is called Oishimbo, which means gourmet in Japanese, and it's a Japanese manga series. Maybe it kind of foretold my future as like a young Angela in the Chinese takeaway working and, you know, spending every night under the covers reading manga. And it's about food journalism, and it follows the story of a food journalist who's tasked by his boss to travel around Japan to find recipes to submit to this magazine, The Ultimate Menu. And it was created by Tetsu Korea, I'm going to butcher it, I'm sorry, and artworked by Akira Hanasaki. And it's a hit manga that ran from the 80s up until 2014, and it sold like 100 million volumes, like it's a crazy amount. But I think a lot of people still don't know anything about them. I think that's what's amazing. It's like, you have mangas, they sell all these copies, but they're also this elusive character like no one knows anything about. But yeah, what I love about Oishimbo is kind of the ability to not only kind of teach about food preparation, like there's recipes in there, and also like different cuisines, but also it kind of imparts lessons about life, self-confidence, and just kind of appreciating the simple pleasures of kind of food.
So this really preempted your career?
Maybe it did.
Yeah.
But I think, like when I was working in the kitchens for such a young age, you kind of hate the thing that you're always surrounded by because you don't really have an escape when you're living and working in the same space. So I think this is the book that made me kind of appreciate food on my own terms without it kind of being, oh, I had to do it because, you know, it was part of my family's business, or, you know, and I wanted to support my parents, obviously, but it's something that I did it for my own enjoyment. Yeah. So, yeah, in a way that I love this. But yeah, this is the chapter that I'm about to read. And it kind of follows along the character of the main character, the food critic. His name is Shiro Yamaoka, and the newspaper he works for. And they're basically taking out this businessman who has a lot of money, and they're trying to impress him, and they're putting on an art exhibition, and they're basically trying to win him over. And this is the second attempt of trying to win him over after taking him to this really fancy, like, Michelin star meal, and it was a disaster. Everything was out of season. He hated it, and he was, like, kicking off. And I think he was just like, right, this is the last meal. This is the last chance you're going to get to impress me. So the food critic takes him to this restaurant, and I'm going to read it now. But yeah, I don't know how I'm trying to figure out, because is it like left, right? No, right? Okay, wait, I'll just read and I'll figure it out. But yeah, we'll start on that left panel. So this this restaurant. It's quite a small, like, it's a yakitori restaurant. It's like a really tiny restaurant that doesn't look very nice on the outside, but it's called okabashi. And then the businessman on the left with the glasses, he's saying, "Oh my God, what a puny restaurant. Are you sure I can have something decent in here?" And they walk in, and then the chef comes and says, "Welcome." And then the food writer was saying to the chef, "Get started." And he says to the chef, and he's like, "Okay." Wait, am I done this?
Yeah.
Sorry, am I missing a
No,
space? I'm like confused where I am, because it's like different to me, so I think it's ruined. Okay. And he's like, "I don't know what you've gotten ready for me, young man, but you're not going to be able to satisfy me with some ordinary dish." And then the editorial team, I'm like losing their mind, like, "Oh my God, are you sure about this place, Kurita-kun?" It's fine. The restaurant Tatsu-san recommended, which is, he gets all his recommendations from a homeless man. Because the homeless man wanders around all the streets of Japan and he gets all the leftovers from the restaurants. So he knows exactly where to go. So this is one of the restaurants that the homeless man's recommended. So they're all looking at the chef intently, and they're all like seeing what he's cooking. And the chef turns around and then he goes, "Here you go." And then the businessman's looking at this. It's like, what is this? And they're all like in shock at this simple dish. And then the editorial team are like, "Oh my God, this is..." It's a really simple-looking dish. It's basically just rice, miso soup, and one whole dried sardine. "Yamaoka-kun, this is a joke, right? There's more after this, right?" And like, "No, this is all. This is the whole meal for tonight." And the editorial team are losing their mind. They're like, "Oh my God, it's over. We're not going to get this businessman on board." And that's why I said we shouldn't trust him with it. "Oh my God, Yamaoka-kun, what is this?" And then the businessman's like, "Wait." And he inspects the dish really carefully. He picks up the bowl of rice, looks at the grains, and he's like, "Look at the way the rice is shining. It looks like jewels. Each grain of rice retains its original shape, and they're all the same size too. Its stickiness and scent, it's been washed to perfection. Washing the rice to just rinse off the dirt and excess bran without wasting the flavor and scent of the rice is extremely difficult. I made my fortune before the war at the rice market. I still find time to do the research on rice. I'm sure I can figure out what this rice is and where it comes from." He closes his eyes and is at one with rice. And he's, making sure. And then it's Sasa Nishiki, but it's not from Miyagi. It's Shonai rice from, oh my God, I'm going to butcher these, sorry, Maruma, Yamagata Prefecture. Well, and then the chef's saying, "Yeah, that's correct. Wow, he guessed the type of rice and where it came from? I don't believe it." And then, next page. Yeah, okay. And then this rice has been dried under the sun, not by machine, and you milled it right here just before washing it, didn't you? And the chef says, "Yes. You could cook it over an old-fashioned furnace using firewood for fuel, and just before steaming it, you throw a handful of straw into the fire, if you want to cook the rice like this. Then this miso soup too," and then he closes his eyes, brings the miso soup to his mouth. "Ah, it's real miso, made from domestic soy and natural salt. The dashi is made from katsubushi and obushi from makurazaki, and he used the good part in the center. And the tofu is made with domestic soybeans and real brine. Ah, so this is so good, it's making me cry." And the businessman's like eating all of the sardine. It's real whole dried sardine from Tosa. It's been grilled just right. It's the flavor of my hometown, how it brings back memories. And then he's eating everything like a lunatic, downing miso soup. And he bows and says, "Thank you very much. Tell me, cook, the one who found that I was from Tosa and made my fortune at the rice market is..." "Yeah, it's the young man sitting next to you, the food critic." And then they all look at him in joy and shock. "I see, I hadn't had such a good meal for decades. Now you've made me taste the joy of being born Japanese. Feel free to use my Renoir as you like for the art exhibition." And they all say, "Thank you, woo, thank you, hooray, yeah, save the day." And then they're like, "We want to come back." And then, basically they're saying that your generosity will allow us to hold a wonderful art exhibition. And that's it.
is so good. And actually, anyone's ever tried cooking Japanese rice know that it takes like half a day just to get it. And, you know, I stopped trying anymore
Get a
because
rice
I get
cooker.
so much rice everywhere. But the fanning and
Yeah.
it's a real obsession. Actually, something very Japanese about sort of looking for the perfection in the very simple, straightforward, immensely painful processes. It's
Yeah, they're like
Yeah.
meticulous about everything.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's kind of amazing about Japanese food is like you have I don't know if anyone's been to Japan, but whenever you go to any restaurant, it's like usually like one person that's been like there for generations. And they do one thing like really, really well, and they just do whether it's like an omelette or whether if it's like like sushi really well, or even like ramen. But they do it so well. They dedicate their life to it. It's like almost a craft. And I think like what's so great about this manga is it kind of gives you the joy of like the simple things in life, like rice, for example. Like we all eat rice, but to do it really well. And but also it kind of makes you appreciate things. So I think what this message is for this manga is they try to impress someone with like all the flashy stuff and the fancy lights and all that kind of thing, but then you just take them back to like a simple restaurant and they're like, this is just
This
so
is what
good.
we want.
Like, yeah,
This is what we want. This is what we want.
Yeah.
I love it, and I love how food in real life can never be as good as food in cartoon, like drawn food. I came up on sort of Asterix, and they're always sort of roasting whole beasts. And it's like, nothing will ever taste as good as this. Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you so much for that, Angela. It was so much. Our next and last reader next to me here is Olia Hercules. Yes, it is. She was born in the south of Ukraine. She studied Italian language and international relations at the University of Warwick, like you, Lulu. You know each other from university? Sorry about that. After spending a year in Italy, Olia settled in London, pursuing a career in journalism. She would later quit her job as a film business reporter and pursue her dream to cook for a living. Dedicated to researching food cultures and culinary traditions of countries less explored, Hercules is the author of the award-winning cookbooks Mamushka, Kavkazis, and Summer Kitchens. Her upcoming book, Strong Roots, Ukrainian Family Story Through War, Exile, and Hope, is published in June. She's going to read from this book just for us. We had special permission from the publisher, so this is embargoed. And I feel very privileged.
So I also misread the brief. So I thought that everybody was going to read from their book. So I was like, ah!
There was no brief.
Oh.
There was no brief. Everything is on point.
Anyway, so
You've not heard that.
So this book is coming out, and I do like this bit of my writing because it means so much to me, and I hope that it will have an impact of some sort.
Get the tissues ready, everyone.
Well, so just very quickly to explain what's happening in this passage, it's from the chapter called Borscht in Italy, and when the war started, my whole family and my parents were in the south of Ukraine, in Kakhovka, in their hometown, and their home. And the Russian tanks just rolled in. And for 2 months, they protested, they went out, and then eventually the Russians started shooting into the crowds. And then eventually my dad received a phone call and was threatened. And that's when I lost my shit completely, and I just I had a meltdown, complete I can't even explain. And I made them leave. And I said, if you don't leave, I can't keep going, I can't live if I'm constantly worried about you like that, so just go. So they left. Took them what usually takes an hour to get from my hometown in Kakhovka to Kherson, the regional, the main city in the region. Takes an hour normally, it took them 19 hours. So they broke through 19 Russian checkpoints, and then they drove through Europe to Italy, where my cousin has been living in Germany actually for the past 15 years. He's a trauma surgeon. He's just bought kind of like a slightly dilapidating house there, and it was empty. So he just said, why don't you just go there? And as soon as they went there, I said, I'm gonna fly out immediately, just kind of, to receive them there. The idea of them coming into this house, which has been empty and also, you know, it hasn't been fixed up, and it's April, so it's still cold, and it's still, you know, I just wanted to be there to see them, but also to just make them some borscht and to welcome them and help them and just hold them. So this is when I arrive to this house and prepare them this meal. So I arrive at the villa at 9:30 in the morning, and by 10 I am off again. I have 6 hours to shop and cook and tidy up. Just enough time, so long as nothing goes wrong. I walk down the hill to the supermarket with a spring in my step. The April air is cool on my face, but the late morning sun feels warm on my shoulders, warm like a cat's belly. I feel something close to euphoria, almost manic. They got out. I don't think I have ever felt a relief as profound as this, except perhaps after giving birth. It is how I would imagine feeling when doctors give you a terrible diagnosis, but then quickly realize they have made a mistake. The blissful anticipation of seeing my parents, watching them eat, being able to squeeze their hands and hear their voices mingles with the sunshine and birdsong around me. It propels me forward to almost run down the hill, arms swinging, childlike. I know their story is going to be difficult for them to tell and for me to hear. And I know there will be tears, but at least we will have a familiar warm bowl of soup to eat and a glass of beer to sip slowly, giving us a chance to pause, to reshuffle thoughts, words, and emotions. The supermarket looks generic and soulless, and my heart drops at the sight. The possibility of not finding any beetroot, which Italians don't use much, suddenly strikes me as I approach the plastic glow of the shop's entrance and the scaffolding around it. I step inside and gasp, as any avid cook would. Do not judge a shop by its cover. Immediately, I spot agretti, or monk's beard, a wild marsh-dwelling weed. Then I see bitter-leaved pontarella, a few types of artichokes, all niche ingredients only found in specialist shops in London. Ruby, Lila's shop. In another life, I would have squealed at this seasonal cornucopia, a food lover's dream. But on this occasion, I frantically move my eyes from one colorful patch of green grocery to another, searching for a glimpse of earthy purple or dark muddy pink. No fresh beetroot. I remind myself to breathe. It is not the end of the world if borscht does not happen. Calmly, I walk to the fridge and spot vacuum-packed boiled beetroot, the last one on the shelf. There is no dill in sight, but there is parsley, which will do. I need a good chicken. A good chicken which has had a long and active life. It needs to be old and wiry, the energy of its movement and years of its age transferred into flavor. This type of bird is what makes the borscht sing. I scan the butcher counter from one fat bird to another until I see her, pollo per brodo, a boiling chicken, corn yellow and dinosauric, full of flavor, no doubt, just like at home. Having covered the deal-breaking essentials, I fill my basket with white onions and carrots, a young head of cabbage, and, hooray, panna acida, sour cream. I also throw in some olives and pickled anchovies, eggs, flour, minced meat, cheese. I cannot resist asparagus or the monk's beard, as I'm sure my parents have never tried it. I grab a 6-pack of beer too. I want to cook. It's time to start. The chicken's skin is torched with a dodgy lighter to get rid of the stubbly roots of feathers on the legs and wingtips. It creates a scent that teleports me to my childhood. Chickens, ducks, even geese, held over the hob's flame, turned this way and that. It's a smell both similar and entangled with the scent of an extinguished match, sulfuric, warm, animal. The bottle of tomato passata is so good that there's no need for that pinch of sugar. I chop the squeaky cabbage, young and porous rather than tightly packed, and I do not cry this time. The soggy pre-boiled beetroot is not good enough. In our family, a firm raw root, all pinks and whites, would be cut into almost perfect matchsticks and boiled together with the meat in plenty of water, dyeing it a muddy yellow. This beetroot makes the stock turn brownish purple. After an hour, I skim some fat off the surface and pour it into a frying pan. The onions are diced and the carrots roughly grated, and I fry them both in the skimmed chicken fat. The onions and carrots are to be cooked gently, all the sugars drawn out to sweeten the earthy stock. The sound of the vegetables frying is both comforting and useful, for as soon as the noise quietens, I know that they have absorbed the tasty fat and that most of their water has been released and has evaporated, so now they could burn. It was my maternal grandmother Lucia who taught us to listen to our cooking. Whenever she made noodli, a dish of pork stew covered in huge swirly dumplings, she would say, "Wait until you hear enough spirit in it," by which she meant it needed to be on a hard boil, then add the dumplings. No wonder the act of cooking has such power over so many of us. It forces us to stay truly in the moment, a trope of every meditation practice from art to prayer. To be a good cook, you need to see, smell, taste, and hear, and there's no better way to feel alive. The onions and carrots, now soft, sweet and frazzled at the edges, I scraped into the stock with a couple of satisfying plops. I don't peel the potatoes, a recent habit and unorthodox for borscht making. I cube and drop them in, to be cooked until a knife goes in as easily as if they were butter. In go the beans, not red kidney, but a tin of borlotti, which will do nicely. The sliced red pepper and the cabbage are prepped and set aside to be added strictly at the last minute, to cook very briefly, retaining their freshness and a little texture. This, our borscht, has to be thick with vegetables. To test it, stick a wooden spoon in its center. If it stands proud, my mother would be too. Soon enough, the kitchen is filled with steam, hope, and familiar, comforting smells. Then Mom phones. They're 5 minutes away. I chuck the cabbage into the borscht and rush out. I stand in the middle of the kinked, steep road, stopping the upcoming cars like a strict traffic warden to help my dad maneuver his car into the garage. Dad's beard is completely white. He looks exhausted. His eyelids are heavier than normal, and 2 puffy bags hang beneath his eyes. His head and hands shake more than usual. A 5-day car trip. It would exhaust you even if you weren't fleeing a war. I don't know how my mom does it, but on the surface, she looks as good as always. Her short hair, black in the past, now white and dyed a pinkish blonde for ease, looks perfect. She has lipstick on, as always. Later, she shows me her wartime manicure. The red shellac has grown out halfway up her nails. I tried to make an effort too, for her sake, changing from a flower-covered green holey jumper to a striped t-shirt and clean black dungarees. No manicure for me for many years now. I know that secretly my parents think I'm a slob, but in the last couple of years, they have accepted that I will be forever makeupless and scruffy, with my visibly mended socks and beaten-up workers' boots. We're hugging, fussing. I grab the big bag. Dad takes it from me and gives me a smaller one. We hug again, and suddenly I feel just how thin my mom is compared to the last time we embraced in January. I expected to see more bags. Actually, I expected to see my parents' car filled to the brim. In my imagination, even with furniture, like a couple who are moving house. But they're not moving house. They're fleeing. Everything was done in haste with emotions that are very hard to try and understand. What would it feel like to have to leave your home suddenly? What would you take? Just to lighten the mood a little bit, after all that, we sat down to eat that borscht. And of course, I was helping with the bags and the cabbage overcooked. So my dad sat there and he was like, "Yeah, you should really take some lessons in making borscht from Mom."
This is why we really came, to fix your borscht.
Yeah.
But in a way that makes it a little bit even more perfect, because
It's, yeah,
not about
family is
divorced.
family, and our family dynamic and everything. And, you know, my mom rolled her eyes and she blamed the vacuumed beetroot.
I
And,
blame it too.
yeah.
No dill, come on.
And no dill, come on.
Italians, right? Learn about food a little
Well,
bit.
but they did have those delicious agretti, which
Yeah.
we did really enjoy as
They
well.
don't do beetroot. And they don't do dill.
No, my mom actually, they stayed in that Italian house for a couple of months, and then they went to Germany to live with my cousins there in Berlin. But my mom immediately, well, not immediately, but within kind of a couple of months, she bought tomato seeds and dill seeds. and she planted them in
Let's
the
fix
garden.
the place up.
Yeah,
Plant
come on,
some kale,
guys.
plant
Yeah.
some beetroot, now we can live here.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, there's also the plumbing, but we don't care about that.
Yeah. The plumbing was fine.
Yeah, that sounds, I met your mum and that sounds very
Yeah.
much like her. She knows what's important and what's not.
She does, yeah.
Unbelievably, this is still ongoing.
Yeah.
But I think there was, or maybe it's my prism, but a lot of the story of this war came out through food. Even, through borscht, suddenly it got this DOP, which was kind of like a gesture of international support.
Yeah, and one of the most amazing things I've seen, because everybody wants to do something. Like my dad stayed in Berlin for a month, and then he said, "I can't." I've never heard him use the word depression in his whole life, and he's for sure has been depressed before. But he said, "I am just doom scrolling, and I'm gonna die from depression. I need to go back to Ukraine, and I need to do something." And my parents have known each other since they were 6 years old. They were in the same class at
That's very
school.
cute.
They married when they were 18. Had my brother when they were 18, and they were suddenly separated. So they've been separated for the past 2 years. So he went back to Ukraine, and he's building a minesweeper there out of an old tractor, of course, as you would. Mom is still in Berlin, and she has a different way to cope. So she started learning German. She just went and learned German in a year. And my dad is there, but so one of the things, so everybody wants to do something. And there was this amazing story about these women from Kherson, from my region. And they went to Western Ukraine, which is a little bit safer. And they created this initiative where they started dehydrating all of the vegetables for borscht. So they almost made like an instant borscht ramen type thing, and they were sending it to the front lines. Because obviously, if you're in the trench, you can't cook, but you can maybe boil a little bit of water over fire. So but everything was done with these amazing organic ingredients, and it's amazing, all of these stories that are coming out. But yeah, of course, we're all extremely exhausted, and but I don't know. We just keep finding these avenues, these little ways of. To keep going. And cooking is, and I couldn't cook. As soon as the full-scale invasion started, I felt like I lost my superpower. When I say that I didn't cry about the cabbage, is because I couldn't cook. Especially the minute I start chopping something familiar, like a cabbage, I would just be in bits, and for 2-3 months I didn't cook at all. I didn't eat even. Like it just disappeared. Like all of that world, it hurt me to because it was all so connected to my family. So this was the moment when I started to cook, when I wanted to cook for my parents. I was just like, I want them to come in, I want them to smell borscht, I want us to sit down and have that cold beer, and we didn't sip it slowly, we just like
Chugged it down.
Because
the borscht was so bad.
I love you, Itamar. So that's the story. So that's the book. And,
and it's coming out when?
June 19th.
June 19th. You heard it here first. Listen, guys, maybe we have a roving mic, maybe we don't. Maybe someone has any questions, thoughts, feelings, or emotions that they want to share with the group. Maybe Polly's looking very anxious. What have I done?
Right up against, we've got like 2 minutes for questions.
2 minutes, 2 questions, make them good. The rules are, it needs to be a question. Don't tell a story, ask something. If you write it down, ends with a question mark.
Hi, I feel privileged to thank you for sharing all these stories. I do feel privileged to absorb them. I have a very sharp question. Something captured my attention today, a phrase. Food can cement the identity. My question would be to Ola, first of all, but equally to everyone who feels that this question resonates with them. Can we talk a little bit about how food can define or cement the identity? I'm also from Ukraine, so I know how important it is for us to cement an identity through food, through what we eat, and through what we tell and what we remember. Thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking about what you were reading, Maria, about sort of how in Bangladesh they had to get everything sort of the national bird, the national fruit, the national this. And that. I think in Sri Lanka as well, there's a very big sort of this is our national thing. Do you want to speak to that, or do you want to?
I often think about how like diaspora, when you're like separate from your country, or you fled, or something difficult has happened, you hold on to these totems of what is traditional more than people. I feel like when I cook, you know, diaspora or immigrant Sri Lankans will be like, well, that's not really traditional, and all the aunties and people from Sri Lanka are like, chill out, relax. Make an asparagus curry sounds delicious. Like there's no, the rules become much more fluid, I think. But when you feel like I guess your identity is under threat in some way, you feel you have to hold on, you know, hard, tight to tradition.
Yeah, and I think a lot of sort of weird conversation come out, like, you know, the judgmental aunties, a lot of the conversation about sort of cultural appropriation, which, you know, I think is very, a lot of it is very silly, comes to that because it's so intrinsically yours, you know, it's so, at the same time, food is so personal, but also so political, universal, whatever.
I say it a lot, but it's about respect.
Respect.
I think that's why people become impassioned about it, because the fact that when you move something away from, it's fine to experiment, it's fine to kind of think outside of the realm in which it's meant to initially be in, but I think when it's removed without an understanding as to how that came to be moved or what it was moved from, that's when people get really frustrated. Yeah. I think that's when and that's the reason why identity becomes so important, because of the fact that by moving it away from that thing without any understanding or respect for it, you've actually kind of stripped someone of an identity. I think that for me is something that I will bang on about until the end of time. But it is about, for me, it's about respect and that part of the identity.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Find out what it means. Yeah, we're not going to answer your question, but I think very interesting subject. One more question, Polly Paul?
I mean,
No. No, babies. Hey, listen, I'm sorry that we don't have time to hear you guys, but it's not what we came here for. And this is what we did, right? For me, and I think, you know, I always sort of repeat that quite sort of, maybe you heard me say that before, but I think, you know, the sort of the bits about food are always relegated to sort of the back of the magazine and the glossy bits, and food writing is kind of like a middle class affectation maybe, and maybe frothy and maybe not important, but we heard here about politics, about art, about war, about everything that makes human life. All comes out through the prism of food. I think making it approachable to, you know, all of us. I think that food writing is really important. And that's all I have to say for the evening. Are we done now? Do we need to leave? Are you going to get security?
I think people are going to clap, and then I'm going to say something, and then everybody's going to clap again.
Clap now, yes.
Itamar just summed that up beautifully. You know, we have travelled across space and across time. Shh. Across space and across time, but we've also travelled it all together, and we've travelled into the worlds of this amazing, esteemed, fabulous panel, who I think we really are incredibly privileged to have had here all together. And for me, this is like the very best of the food season, but also of food and what food can do. So I am hugely grateful to this panel and these amazing writers, chefs, thinkers, to Itamar for his beautiful, elegant sharing and conversation, and to you as well as an audience for listening. I mean, it was totally riveting.
And the internet.
The internet, no, not tonight. But definitely libraries, because I guarantee you every single book that was read from today will be at the British Library because it's a legal deposit library. So anything that you heard today, you could just come and research and read yourselves at the British Library. Amazing food collections. Thank you so much. Amazing panel, Itamar, and all of you as well. And I hope to see you again at the next food season event.
Yeah, and Polly.